Police Association President Tony Day presented plaques from the New South Wales Police Association and the South Australian Association paying tribute to the work of local police during the earthquake. The trophies were accepted by Newcastle Chief Superintendent Russ Cook. Later, police officers settled in for union talks on the state of the force. Tony Day says police are still deeply troubled by the lack of financial assistance provided to them when they are obliged to defend themselves in court.
All we ask for from any government is do what they're doing in every other state of Australia. Support your police financially if you want to put them before the courts.
The stress of everyday police work is also the focus of a long-running issue. The association claims it was promised a 30-year retirement option by the Greiner government, which was never honoured. Police say it's an entitlement that should go with a job that takes an unusually high emotional toll.
We don't get any fun or any joy out of being shot at or taking deceased babies from mothers or taking parents along to identify their dead children in car accidents. There's no joy in that for police, and they've got to be given the chance to be able to opt out of the system whilst they're still available to do so.
And the Police Association says it's more than prepared to take advantage of the delicate power balance in the state's lower house to achieve its goals.
It's our responsibility now to speak to the independents in relation to these matters so they fully understand the situation that exists in the New South Wales Police Force.
The corrugated iron hall has seen better days. It's almost all that's left of a World War II training base. To others it's been known as a gymnasium, playgroup centre and dance venue. But to Councillor Innes Crichton, it's an eyesore.
The building has outlived its usefulness. It is an eyesore and it should be demolished and there's nothing that we'll back off from that.
The Tomaree Neighbourhood Centre and Help for Early Leavers program groups have made the hall their home. It's a rent-free space to teach work skills to the area's unemployed youth and provide community assistance.
It's very important to our groups that we either have a hall or remain somewhere in the vicinity of Nelson Bay.
The council has offered the groups alternative accommodation and will reserve judgment on the hall's fate until it hears a full report on the matter on the 11th of June. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
That Australia has an inflation rate which is sooner rather than later. I point out to you that in the latest national account figures it shows the recovery in housing activity. And may I say, it's no accident that the most successful economies have tried, but it's in economic terms fundamentally important.
Reports of a leadership challenge first surfaced in 1988, and as recently as last week, the Labor Party's top number cruncher, Graham Richardson, claimed Mr Hawke's job was safe.
There's no great failing that's occurred. There's no reason, no peg to hang a challenge hat on. But there's not going to be one.
But all that changed after Paul Keating told Labor colleagues of a promise made to him by Mr Hawke that he would step down after the 1990 election, giving his successor time to become established as leader. And the promise was apparently made in front of Sir Peter Abels, who is not an ALP member, and a second witness, ACTU Secretary Bill Kelty, at a meeting at Kirribilli House in Sydney in 1988. Mr Hawke has made it clear to Mr Keating and Labor's power broker Senator Richardson that he won't retire without a fight. Whatever the outcome of the crucial caucus vote, Mr Keating apparently plans to remain in federal politics, even if it means having to sit on the backbench.
Scientists at the Gosford Post-Harvest Laboratory are keeping a close eye on one of the export fruit industry's greatest problems.
This is what the problem's all about. Queensland fruit fly.
These seemingly harmless bugs have kept potential buyers of Aussie fruit at bay. The Gosford lab keeps more than 400,000 fruit fly for experiments. While insecticides have controlled the fly in the past, export markets such as Japan are looking for non-toxic controls. Scientists have found by simply chilling fruits such as oranges, apples and table grapes at a constant rate for up to 20 days, the fly rot has stopped. And this opens massive opportunities for new sales. Can you put a dollar figure on it?
Well, I can say it would probably be billions.
According to scientist Andrew Jessup, Korea, Taiwan, New Zealand and America are crying out for a safe fruit crop. The Japanese market alone could be the saviour of the failing Australian citrus industry. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
After 7 days, 4 hours and 13 minutes, Tony Collins jogged into Melbourne, completing his 4th Westfield run and this year finishing in 2nd place just 3 hours behind the winner Brian Smith. Back home and well rested, Tony's Toukley Rotary Club turned on a thank you dinner for raising over $50,000 on this run alone for the Children's Hospital.
I do what I do. I mean, I want to run, but I need the motivation and I need their support. And all of these people here, they support me. I mean, my crew, my sponsors, my club. It's just beautiful.
Tony led the 1,000 kilometre race after a tremendous climb through the mountains, but was finally overhauled by the eventual winner Brian Smith.
Smithy's world class, and I never went into the race feeling that I had any right to beat him. I had lots of hope, but in the end I was quite pleased to sort of come in so close to him. It wasn't to be this year.
While heaping praise on Smith, Tony reserved his highest accolade for protest runner Yanis Kouros.
When you consider his awesome talent, I mean he's the world's best ever. When you compare with say what some of the tennis players and what some of the golfers are getting, who are just merely the best that there is at the moment, he certainly deserves everything that he asked for and more.
I know this is a dreadful question, only a couple of weeks after the run. Are you going to back up for number 5?
That's what I started training for tonight.
This year they're headed from Bourke to the Beagle. That's the Beagle Gulf, which washes the shores of Darwin. 4 local rally cars, 2 old Holdens, a Ford X-Ambulance and a Dodge, along with support vehicles, will meet up with other entrants for tomorrow's start in Sydney. They face 4,500 kilometres of dusty outback New South Wales, Queensland and Northern Territory roads, throwing away the rulebook to make Darwin.
There's virtually no rules. Anything goes, and bribery in liquid form and cash form gets you a long way.
Why the old cars? Why stick to the 60s vehicles?
Basically, they're keeping the tradition going from the old Red X Trials days of Jellicoe Jack Murray.
While some hoped they could measure up to the legend, others prepared for a spirited start. Newcastle's Lord Mayor John McNaughton issued the customary command.
Righto, gentlemen, start your engines.
A condition of entry is for each crew to raise $10,000 for the Variety Club's work. With 160 starters, that makes 1.6 million good reasons to go bush.
Aptly nicknamed the human Phar Lap, John Moyle is a man on a mission. He's out to raise around $110,000 for Sight First, a Lions Club worldwide initiative for the conservation of sight. Running the equivalent distance to an Olympic marathon each day, John has already covered the Dukes and Western highways from Adelaide to Bordertown and across to Melbourne, then turning his sights northward to travel through Seymour, Yass, Canberra, Goulburn, Liverpool, Parramatta, Gosford and on to Newcastle. Ahead of him, the torturous climb up the Pacific Highway to Brisbane, where he is expected on June the 18th, the opening day of the Australian-hosted Lions International Convention. And surprisingly, the cause is inspiration enough for the toughest teak crow eater.
This run is very significant because Lions International is the only service organisation in the world today that's ever ran for 40 million people, And for every $1 we raise on this run, I save 1 baby in 10, and that's the reason why I've done this run.
Joining John on the run is Gosford Lion Dave Porter, choosing to ride from Sydney to Brisbane instead of wearing out the joggers.
He's a man who's not even a lion, and he's not being paid 1 cent to do this, and it's a fantastic program, and I just felt that we'd like to be part of the team and support him in what he's doing.
John will run to Karua today and then onwards to his ultimate goal, a good rest in Brisbane. Suffering considerable pain, he's able to block it out by thinking of the less fortunate in the community.
When you feel the pain, you feel sick, you feel tired, you remember the people you're running for and what pain they go through, so you don't whinge, you just keep pounding the bitumen.
These soldiers are the pawns on the government's defence strategy chessboard, and they've now been told they'll be moving north.
The reserve members there will be offered redeployment in the other reserve units around Newcastle, so there'll still be the opportunity for them to take part in army activities. The regular officers and soldiers there will be redeployed up in other signal units. That'll either be Townsville or Brisbane, so there'll be no redundancies or anything like that. They'll just be redeployed.
The fort is home to 65 regular army soldiers and about 25 reserves, but it's also been the scene of some tireless work by local historians. A group of World War II veterans has spent more than 4 years restoring the fort's elaborate tunnel system. They're desperately hoping those years of hard work aren't buried yet again, but the army is giving no guarantees.
There's always disappointment when anything that is an important part of the area does change. Of course, the Defence Department has yet to decide what to do with the Fort Wallace installation at this stage.
The complex was officially opened in 1913 when it was known as Fort Stockton. No decision has yet been made on an official closing date. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The Frisco Furniture and Bedding Warehouse at Erina was opened just 6 weeks ago. In the early hours of this morning, it was severely damaged by a fire which authorities believe was deliberately lit. Thick smoke billowed from the roof of the building on Erina Road, hampering efforts to enter the warehouse and forcing firemen to don breathing apparatus. Officers had to cut through roller doors to reach the fire, which is believed to have started in the loading dock area of the building. Stockpiles of furniture awaiting delivery were destroyed, scores of mattresses adding fuel to the blaze. It took 4 brigades 2 hours to control the fire. Investigations are continuing.
It was the club's 17th official run, setting off from Gosford yesterday and wending their way to Shoal Bay. Among them a rare 1933 Dodge Brothers Roadster, one of only a handful imported during the Great Depression, now painstakingly restored by its owner Les Gallimore. Many of the cars are ornamental rather than economical and hold special appeal.
When you go past, they look at you, give you a wave and say, "Blow the horn, mister." You blow the horn, they laugh, clap, and it's, it's real good, invigorating fun. I think, anyway.
Two worlds collided when the tour stopped for breakfast at Raf Williamtown's Fighter World. Drivers of the slow but stylish vintage autos tried a supersonic seat for a change. The cars may be old, but they're not frail. Some will rally to Alice Springs later this month.
More than 120 trains pass between the Burrigal and Taralba stations each day. For the next 6 months, they'll cover the distance at just 40 kilometres per hour, half their usual speed. The SRA has imposed the new limit as a precaution while it monitors the effects of longwall mining under the line.
It's purely a safety first precaution. There's some change going on with the track or the land around the track, so we've put on speed restrictions in the interests of safety.
It's the first time a longwall mine has passed under a railway line in Australia, but the SRA says overseas studies have shown no ill effects. Engineers will monitor the situation daily and anticipate no more than 400 millimetres subsidence.
The track does settle, and what it will mean is the track will be better aligned than it is now. The surveyors told me that the gradient there will be more standard. It will be a straighter piece of track or a more level piece of track.
Trains will now leave Newcastle 4 minutes early to compensate for the new speed limit. They'll leave Sydney at the same time as usual, but will arrive in Newcastle 4 to 5 minutes later. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
Fire broke out on the unoccupied 5th floor of Lombard House in Hunter Street just after 2 o'clock this afternoon. 100 workers from the busy office block escaped the blaze, but one man was trapped in a lift. As worried colleagues looked on, firemen donned breathing apparatus and rushed to the 5th floor, battling a wall of flame to rescue the man.
The lift was stuck on the fire floor. Firefighters using hydraulic gear forced the doors open, and hopefully the gentleman's all right.
The 44-year-old man was later taken to hospital suffering smoke inhalation. Smoke also proved a difficulty for firefighters. Firemen eventually managed to open windows on the 5th floor. They managed to control the blaze within 15 minutes but feared it could spread.
The fire was in danger of spreading from the 5th level to higher levels, possibly through the lift shaft. As I stated, the male person who was stuck in that lift was very lucky to escape.
At this stage, the cause of the fire remains unknown. Firefighters describe it as a small blaze but believe heat and smoke damage to electrical equipment could run into thousands of dollars.
The next time Cessnock residents toss a bottle in the bin, the Mayor hopes it will be into one of these bins. The Council has placed a bottle bank in the central car park at Cessnock as part of its recycling strategy.
But hopefully the bottle banks we've set up here and our recycling depots at our dumps may interest people.
It's the first stage of Cessnock's recycling plan and will be trialled for 3 months. Glass that finds its way here will later be crushed and used in new bottles by the manufacturing company ACI.
Glass is made out of sand primarily, so that every tonne of glass that we take back from the environment is a tonne of sand less we have to mine.
Council is considering the introduction of a door-to-door service to collect glass, but that won't be introduced until next year. Meantime, around Lake Macquarie, garbage bins kept a street vigil, unemptied despite the declaration of World Environment Day. Industrial action by Lake Macquarie City Council's outdoor staff stopped garbage collections throughout the area. After a meeting before the Industrial Commission, staff are likely to return to work tomorrow. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It was a grim Ken Cole who today officially revealed one of basketball's worst kept secrets.
The Newcastle Falcons have terminated the contract of US import Jerry Everett.
Sacked at the end of the 1989 season for disciplinary reasons, Everett was reinstated at the beginning of this year. His amazing skills and on-court aggression made him a crowd favourite, but things went horribly wrong at a training session earlier this week.
Jerry split open Chris Steele's eye, in what was considered to be a quite intentional elbow. There was no remorse shown in any case or in any stage by Jerry. As a matter of fact, the reaction was belligerent.
Cole says he sacked Everett with the full support of the club's owners, players and coaching staff. The Falcons now have just 2 days to name their replacement import. Hunters guard Richard Ramey has been impressive, but may not be considered tall enough to fill Everett's shoes. The club is holding urgent talks with 2 other Americans in a bid to finalise a deal before Friday's NBL deadline. Captain Al Green admits morale has suffered.
It's bad. It's a situation like, speaking of Jerry, we talked about it on the road trip against Canberra. We're sitting back, the guys are looking for an answer. We're trying to say what is wrong, why we're not playing as good as we're capable of playing, how come that 4 can't click like we should be able to.
Even before the Everett incident, the Falcons were having a horror season. With only 2 wins from 10 games, they're at the bottom of the ladder. And Coach Cole says he'll resign if things don't improve within the next few weeks.
Then I have no qualms at all about stepping aside from the coaching, none at all. I've been discussing it for a month.
Jerry Everett was today unavailable to comment on the situation. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The residents of Burralong Valley south of Wollombi are still in a state of shock. Last August, a heavy flood ripped through, tearing out gullies, carrying away thousands of tonnes of soil. The 37 families in the area banded together to rebuild the landscape, and 10 months later that work has shown some success. But locals are angry that promises of government funding through land care is simply too far away.
And I wonder at times whether we're simply justifying jobs because we want to get on with this job, not get involved in a paperwork fight.
James Lang-Peach says the concept of land care is brilliant. Advice from field workers has helped greatly, but much needed financial aid takes up to 18 months to get through.
We need that money now to continue the program. Thousands of trees have gone in, we've done all this sort of soil work, but we need to keep that going.
Water Resources has helped building weirs to break the flow of the Wollombi Brook, but extra funding is needed to continue tree planting and fencing on the brook's banks before another flood creates even greater damage. The work by the residents of this tiny valley has proved something can be done to stop land degradation. But obviously hard labour isn't just the answer. These people need positive support, not paper shuffling from government authorities. Peter Ryan, NBN News.